Michael Jackson was the most famous entertainer in the world, but to 3 people, he was just Dad. And what happened to them after June 25th, 2009, is a story almost nobody tells in full. 3 children, 3 completely different lives, and one shadow that never truly disappeared. This is what happened to the children he left behind.
A side not often seen in public.
Michael was an incredible father.
A blood for all. Not by myself, help me. Help. Let's find out what's special about his brother. There's something special about his brother. Now Sammy sometimes get a lift to his school in the car with us. And even though he still can't say my name, when I wave goodbye in a sad sort of way, he waves back to me.
To understand what those 3 children lost, you first have to understand what they had. Michael Jackson spent his own childhood performing. He was on stage by the age of 5, managed by a father who understood his son's talent and extracted everything from it. Michael once said he never had a childhood, that while other boys were playing in the street, he was rehearsing, recording, touring. That wound never healed. And when his own children arrived, he built the childhood he never got to have and gave it to them instead. Neverland Ranch was not a publicity stunt. It was a genuine attempt to create a world where children, his children specifically, would never have to grow up the way he did. There was a zoo with tigers and elephants, a Ferris wheel, a carousel, a movie theater, a train that circled the property. They were homeschooled. They wore masks in public. Not to be strange, but because Michael understood, from a lifetime of experience, exactly what happened to children whose faces the world recognized. He had lived it. He refused to let them. Prince Michael Jackson Jr. was born on February 13th, 1997. Michael's first child, named after his father, raised from infancy to believe that learning was the most important thing a person could do. Paris Michael Catherine Jackson arrived on April 3rd, 1998, named after the city where she was conceived. Michael's only daughter, the one he called Tinker Bell, and Prince Michael Jackson II, Blanket, now Bigi, was born on February 21st, 2002, via surrogate, the last child Michael would ever have. Michael gave full custody of Prince and Paris himself after his divorce from their mother, Debbie Rowe, in 1999. He raised all 3 largely alone, with the help of nannies and teachers, at Neverland. He said once that he enjoyed taking care of them himself, that it was fun, that it was why he had them. They're wonderful, sweet, innocent children, he told an interviewer in 2005. They're the world for me. He meant it absolutely. And for 11 years, inside the estate he had built, it worked. From hidden to exposed, the world they woke up in. When Michael Jackson died, his children had never attended a regular school. They had never navigated a classroom where everyone knew exactly who they were. They had never had to manage the weight of a name that meant something specific and enormous to every person they met. They had been, by deliberate design, invisible. That ended overnight. Custody passed initially to Michael's mother, Catherine Jackson, then 80 years old, who became the permanent guardian of all 3 children. They moved into the Jackson family home in Encino. They began attending school for the first time. They appeared publicly at their father's memorial at the Staples Center on July 7th, 2009, where Paris, 11 years old, still masked for the first half of the service, stepped to the microphone in front of a global television audience and said through tears, "Ever since I was born, Daddy has been the best father you could ever imagine. And I just wanted to say I love him so much."
Ever since I was born, Daddy has been the best father you could ever imagine. And I just wanted to say I love him so much.
It was the first time the world had properly seen her face. It would be a long time before the world gave her a moment's peace afterward. In 2012, their older cousin T.J. Jackson, son of Tito, was named co-guardian alongside Catherine. By 2017, as Catherine's health made sole guardianship difficult, T.J. became their primary guardian. The children were passed between arrangements that, however well-intentioned, could not replicate the singular, ferocious, unusual protection their father had provided. The contrast was total. They had been the most protected children in America. Now they were among the most scrutinized. The masks were gone, the gates were open, and the world that Michael had spent 11 years keeping at a distance walked straight in. Prince Jackson, the son who chose responsibility over the spotlight. Prince was 12 when his father died, old enough to understand what had happened, old enough to feel the particular weight of being the eldest, the one who, in the absence of a father, was now looked at first. He did not waste the weight. He carried it forward. He enrolled in school, discovered his father's fame through other people's eyes. The stadium crowds, the fainting fans, the strangers who wept at the mention of a name he had always thought of as just his father's name. He graduated cum laude from Loyola Marymount University in 2019 with a business degree. He co-founded the Heal Los Angeles Foundation, built deliberately in the shape of his father's own Heal the World Foundation, focused on ending child hunger, homelessness, and abuse across greater Los Angeles. He runs annual Thriller Night fundraisers at the Jackson family's Havenhurst estate. He championed his cousin Jafar Jackson's casting in the upcoming Michael biopic. He got engaged in April 2025 to Molly Shermang, his partner of 8 years. He quotes his father often. Michael used to tell him, "I don't care what you want to be when you grow up. You just have to be the best at it." Prince took that instruction and applied it to the quietest, most consistent version of leadership. Not performance, not celebrity, but showing up for the foundation, for the family, for his siblings, year after year. The pressure is real, and he knows it. People who expect Michael Jackson's son to perform, to entertain, to be the next version of something have been redirected quietly and consistently toward something else. He once told an interviewer, "I would hope he would be proud of the work we've done so far." Not that he would be proud of the fame. The work. That is Michael Jackson's son. Paris Jackson. The most visible wound and the longest road back. Paris was 11 years old at the Staples Center. She was 11 years old when her face became known to the entire world in the worst possible context. A public farewell to a father she had barely had time to know was famous. What followed was one of the most painful transitions any child of a celebrity has ever had to navigate publicly. She was thrown into school, into the media, into a world that had already decided who she was and what she represented before she had any say in the matter. She was cyberbullied relentlessly. People told her to hurt herself every day. She went through a traumatic experience at 14 and told nobody. The depression and anxiety that compounded around all of it went untreated and invisible to everyone around her. At 15, Paris struggled with severe mental health issues and continued to struggle afterward. She was hospitalized after taking a dangerous amount of medication and injuring herself in June 2013. She later told Rolling Stone that there had been other attempts before that one. That the hospitalized incident was just the one that became public. She was prescribed antidepressants and discovered, with a kind of bitter symmetry, that they were the same medication her father had once taken. She attended a therapeutic school in Utah. She got sober. She rebuilt slowly and entirely on her own terms. She signed with IMG Models. She released a debut album, Wilted, in 2020, an indie folk record of careful, honest songwriting that critics received genuinely rather than charitably. She has more than 50 tattoos, 9 of them dedicated to Michael. She speaks about her father with a directness that cuts through every public narrative about him. Not defending, not prosecuting, just insisting on the reality of who he was to her. Nobody experienced him being a father to them, she said, and if they did, the entire perception of him would be completely and forever changed. She is in her mid-20s now. She has described herself as the happiest and healthiest she has ever been. She said, "When I look in the mirror, I don't hate what I see anymore." That sentence cost years to arrive at. It is the most important line she has ever delivered. Bigi Jackson, the one who found freedom in silence. Of all 3 children, Bigi's story is the one that asks the most of the audience, because almost nothing about it is visible, and that invisibility, it turns out, is precisely the point. He was 7 years old when his father died, the youngest, the one with the least time and the most protection still to be stripped away. His very first brush with global notoriety had come before he could form a memory. 9 months old, dangled by his father over the railing of a hotel balcony in Berlin, while a crowd cheered below. Michael apologized immediately. He called it a terrible mistake. His bodyguard recalled him locking himself in his room for a day afterward. The image had already gone around the world. Bigi grew up as Blanket and was bullied for it at school with a persistence that he later made clear had nothing to do with affection. By 2015, at 13, he changed his name to Bigi, not to erase his father, to be able to walk down a hallway without being a target. He became the quiet one, the invisible one. While Prince built a foundation and gave interviews, and Paris modeled and released albums and told the world exactly what she had been through, Bigi said almost nothing. He appeared at family events. He stood with his siblings at birthday tributes and memorial gatherings. He was photographed occasionally, going about his life in Calabasas, a young man buying snacks, looking like anyone else. But Bigi was not doing nothing. He was making films. He co-founded a YouTube channel with Prince and his cousin Taj in 2019, reviewing movies, Avengers, Marriage Story, the things he loved, with the enthusiasm of someone for whom cinema was not a hobby, but a calling. The channel was discontinued in 2020. Then in 2024, something happened. He wrote and directed a short film called Rochelle, a 40-minute drama about 2 friends competing for a position in a prestigious restaurant kitchen. He entered it in the Santa Monica Film Festival. It won Best Drama. Prince posted on Instagram, "Bro is killing it, chasing his dreams and winning awards." Bigi said nothing publicly. He let the film speak. That is, in its own quiet way, the most Michael Jackson thing any of his 3 children have ever done. Michael understood that the work could be present without the person, that you could mean something without being visible. His youngest son, The one whose first moment in public was a balcony he had no choice about, has spent his adult life choosing exactly where he stands and exactly who can see him. The weight no one prepared them for. Here is the thing nobody talks about when they talk about Michael Jackson's children. It is not just the grief. Grief is something millions of people navigate. What these 3 children carry is something more specific and more relentless. The experience of being permanently compared to someone whose name is the most recognizable in the history of popular music. Every time Prince speaks in public, someone measures his voice against his father's. Every time Paris releases a song, someone asks whether it sounds like Thriller. Every time Bigi appears anywhere at all, someone comments on how much he looks like Michael, and means it as a compliment without considering what it costs. They did not choose to be Michael Jackson's children. They simply were. And the world, which loved their father with a devotion that has not diminished in the 16 years since his death, extends that devotion to them in a form that doesn't always feel like love from the inside. It feels like expectation, like ownership, like the weight of a legacy that belongs to everyone and to no one, pressed permanently onto 3 people who just wanted a father. Prince has channeled that pressure into purpose. Paris has turned it into art and honesty. Bigi has refused it entirely and made something quiet and genuinely his own. 3 children, 3 strategies, the same impossible starting point. None of them asked for any of it. All of them are still standing. Where they are now, and what that tells us. Prince Jackson is 28 years old. He runs his foundation, supports his family, is engaged to the woman he loves, and continues to build a life that honors his father without being consumed by him. He said recently of his siblings, "Any moment I get to spend with them is a special moment." Paris Jackson is 27. She is making music, modeling, speaking openly, and by her own account living with a self-love she spent years believing was impossible. Her father, she says, visits her in her dreams. She feels him with her always. Bigi Jackson is 23. He won an award for his first film. He lives quietly in Calabasas. He is, in Paris's words, handsome, intelligent, insightful, funny, and kind. He likes his privacy. That is all she will say. 3 children. 3 lives that are genuinely, distinctly their own, connected by a loss that will never fully close and a name that will never let them simply disappear, but building, each in their own way, something real from the wreckage of June 25, 2009. The legacy is not just music. Michael Jackson gave the world unforgettable music, a catalog that will outlast every generation alive today. A legacy in cinema, in dance, in performance, in culture that changed what was possible and raised the standard for everyone who came after. But for 3 children growing up in Encino and Los Angeles and Calabasas, the legacy was never primarily about the music. It was about a father who kept them masked so the world couldn't reach them, who homeschooled them so they could learn at their own pace, who called his daughter Tinker Bell and his youngest son Blanket because he wanted love to be the first association they ever had with their own names, who said, in 2005, 4 years before he died, "I wake up and I'm ready for the day because of them. They are still here. They are still carrying it. Not as a burden they cannot put down, but as something heavier and more complicated than that. Something that is theirs alone, that no fan and no documentary and no biopic will ever fully reach." A father's legacy is not what he left for the world. It is what he left for the people who knew him before he was famous. For Prince, Paris, and Bigi, that is the only version that has ever mattered. If this story meant something to you, please like and subscribe. There are more stories like this one waiting.